I'm your host, Sandra Grace, Associate Attorney with Florio Perucci, Steinhardt, Capelli, and Tipton. Today's episode is going to take a different turn. We're going to very specifically be honing in on a very important subject as it relates to leadership. In fact, ethical leadership, and not, again, broadly in the workplace, but in education, in school districts and boards of educations alike. So, without further ado, our second episode titled Ethical Leadership in Education, the Foundation of Trustworthy Governance. Let's embark on this. Pour yourself a cup of your coffee, of your tea, and let's delve deep. So, in today's world, where the realms of education are just ever evolving, they're ever so changing. The importance of ethical leadership by administrators and by Board of Education members just stands as a beacon that has to be addressed very, very specifically. But what really anchors ethical leadership in the educational sector, right? It's not really merely about just making decisions that reflect integrity or just making decisions that are going to feel good, whether, again, it be for administrators or Board of Education members alike, right? What it really comes down to at its core is, it's about fostering an environment where these decisions can really make a positive change, right? Whether it be touching the lives of students or making significant impact in educators' lives as well, and overall the community at large. So again, it's a mix between integrity and positivity at the same time, right? So at its core, ethical leadership, first and foremost, obviously, embodies integrity. It embodies integrity, fairness, and just a steadfast commitment to justice overall. And again, we're talking in a very limited scope here because we're not just talking about leadership. We're talking about ethical leadership. But again, not only just ethical leadership in the workplace, but it's ethical leadership in education. So there's really a lot of things at play here. And once again, you have your school administrators do a tremendous job at making sure that different schools are run properly, right? I can't even begin to describe to you the many different factors and how many cogwheels are at play here, right? But you also have your Board of Education members who come into play, who are informed by school administrators, who are informed by, the district's educators, employees, and legal counsel, and they have to go ahead and make decisions based on that information, right? So these leaders, whether they be administrators or Board of Education members, they really they serve as a moral compass for their institutions, or at least they should serve as moral compasses for their institutions. They have to guide policies, they have to guide procedures with a specific vision, right? That ends up transcending just academic achievement in their school district. They have to really keep in mind that not only should they be making decisions that, again, feel good, right? But are they moving their district and their students in a positive direction? But again, I'm going to go back and say it's not just about the students, right? There's so many different factors in play. There's students, there's educators, there's community as a whole, right? Which leads us into topics such as finances, budgets that you have to keep in mind. It's not just about making sure that there's enough room to house the students or the leadership. The leadership is just focusing solely on student grades or scores on SATs or ACTs. There's a real large holistic approach to all of this, right? So we have to imagine a school, right, where every decision, right from the start, from curriculum design to student admissions, is just, steeped in fairness and inclusivity, right? It's not just a utopian dream. It's a reality under ethical leadership when a school district is guided by the not just the right individuals, right, but individuals who have the right mentality. And to be honest, leaders, administrators, employees, and Board of Education members alike, right? They have to confront these dilemmas, whether it be as it relates to grades, whether it relates to bullying, because some of these hearings go before the Board of Education members, or if it's just resource allocations within the entire district. They have to take all these things into consideration with some sort of clarity, keeping in mind the importance as it relates to the greater good, right? So let me just go through some scenarios, right, where there's ethics in play and sometimes there aren't ethics in play, and let's see how they turn out. Let's take our first close look, right? Principal Jordan, he spearheaded a diversity and inclusion initiative in his school, and then under the leadership, the school not only embraced a more diverse curriculum, but also implemented programs that supported underrepresented students to ensure that their voices were heard and valued, right? And then you have on the other side the case of Mr. Dean Smith, who faced an academic dishonesty scandal. Instead of sweeping it under the rug, which he could have, Smith addressed it head on. He created a culture where integrity was not just expected by him, but celebrated in a way. And then he went on to create some forums, some workshops, and some really transparent disciplinary processes based on his own experience. In a sense, he took his own crisis and he transformed it into this cornerstone of ethical growth, right? So I think, while fictitious, obviously, and while very small examples of how these administrators go on to take control of their positions, I think they're very demonstrative, and these many examples just exemplify that the profound impact that ethical leaders, again, this is in terms of administrators, they can have in shaping their environments, right, with trust and integrity, and not just having it be a core value in their school district and not really acting on it. They're really taking these values and they're breathing life into them in their districts, and hopefully creating some sort of ripple effect in front of their students, in front of their board members, and again the district as a whole. But we have examples too that are just beyond the classroom, because not everything takes place just within the classroom. I know sometimes parents can potentially think that's the extent of it, but again, we have a whole other sector, a whole other realm when it comes to school districts, which is as it relates to board meetings, and where board members are addressed by administration and potentially students, depending on the context, and board members, hold these positions, hopefully in an effort to make sure that they're really bettering the district, whether again it comes to grades or finances or whatnot, right? Keeping the holistic view in order, but and we'll get really into specific ethical examples and potential conflicts of interest in the next episode for board members specifically. But again, a lot of what shapes school districts, a lot of what shapes ethical leadership and education, it goes beyond, far beyond the classroom. It goes in the after meetings. It goes behind the scenes, behind closed doors, with administration, with other administration, or with educators and administration, or with administrators and the Board of Education. You know, and I kind of touched on this before, but ethical leadership in education is just a lot more than shaping students or shaping the minds of students, right? We're also talking about the general overall framework of governance that allows these minds to flourish and allows the transcendence and the cascading effect, right, if you will, to the students and educators alike. A lot of education and ethics and leadership in education has to do with creating this culture where a culture of transparency, right? Decisions are made just not in the shadows, not behind closed doors, even though closed doors meetings are very important, right? To strategize and come to terms of options. But a lot of making sure that there's that we're all moving forward in the right direction as it comes to ethical leadership in school districts is being in the light of accountability and having some sort of collaborative engagements, right? This can be in a setting where you're at a board meeting, right? Everyone's able to voice their opinions, and every voice is heard, right? Policies are debated, and it's not necessarily for political gain, but for the actual true impact on whatever educational community we're looking at. This is really the essence. This is really the core of trustworthy governance. We're talking about a transparent. We're talking about an inclusive environment that's just anchored right in ethical principles, and with the understanding that, of course, some people are going to have different opinions, right? We don't always have to agree all the time, and there's the widely known phrase "agree to disagree." But as long as what's kept at the forefront, right, is that the overarching theme is we got to keep in mind the impact, the positive impact on the educational communities, whether it be our administrators, our test scores, our field trips, our budget, our overall community engagement, right? And I think that's once that's kept at the core, right, and really just considered at all times. Again, people can agree to disagree all the time, and still voice their opinions and still have their opinions be heard. And that's really where you get into creating that collaborative environment where there's just respect, even for disagreements or even within disagreements. And obviously, this is just a rippling effect. It starts. It has to start somewhere. Obviously, it could start anywhere really, but it definitely has to start within the leadership. And again, I've mentioned a couple times, leadership is admin. Leadership can be educators. Leadership can be the Board of Education members. But it's almost, you're not just setting an example for the students that are within the district. It's not even just as much as that, as you're setting an example for each other. And again, this collaborative environment where you're working towards the same goal, and you're finding ways to work together to get to that goal. And that's really what ethical leadership is about. It creates such a ripple effect. And the ripple effect of such a way of governing is just so far reaching, in my opinion. You foster societal developments that's really rooted in clarity, right? And again, we're going to go back to integrity, to getting to where you want to be, or where you want the district to be, And I'm not necessarily saying this is easy. By no means is it easy. I have, I've seen where individuals have the best intentions, and whether this be school districts or just individuals in general, right? And I think, if you think about it, you'll probably see or hone in on some examples from your life, just generally. Again, not talking about specific districts or leaders. But there's some challenges along the way, because there disagreements do take place, right? And there's some challenges that are that extend beyond anyone's means or beyond anyone's controls, right? So, oftentimes, and I've touched upon this a couple times, you have, you got to navigate the murky waters of financial constraints. You have to deal with others or your own potential resistance to change. And it's really something or some things that have to be tackled head on, and just communicated through, because there are going to be some uncomfortable conversations. There are going to be some uncomfortable individuals, and sometimes it's no fault of their own. But it is what it is, and at the end of the day, sometimes you have to take a step back and say, the only constant is change, right? Let's look at our overarching goal again, and see what are we really trying to accomplish here, and if that's not the same for everybody, it's going to be really difficult to move things along, right? But here's a beacon of hope, right? Through you gotta persevere. You gotta make sure you're transparent and you're communicating. One thing that I've really, really found to be helpful to overcome some of these challenges and resistance is to communicate. And sometimes, obviously, over communicating is a little worse than not communicating, but at the same time, if we're talking about transparency, if we're talking about everybody trying to get on the same page and reach an overall same goal, then you have to be transparent and you have to communicate. It doesn't work if everybody's on 17 different pages of different books, because then it's going to be very hard to bring everyone together. So coming up with potential core values for the district, coming up with potential goals and challenges that are going to be faced is always a good idea, right? And making sure that everybody's really committed to the integrity and kind of moral aspects with it, right? That come with this. It's a huge commitment. Administrators take on a huge commitment. Board of Education members take on a huge commitment, an unpaid commitment at that, which I think is further demonstrative of how deeply they are committed, because they sign up for meetings and reviews and everything, and they're not getting paid a single dime, right? And I think in general, leaders throughout the district, they have to be in touch with the community to a certain extent, because community support really does play a pivotal role. When leaders, you have educators, students, and parents, when everyone just comes together and gets the goals straight and communicates, and is in discussions about certain aspects that need to be discussed, right, where the community and public is involved, it's a little less daunting. Now, obviously, again, and I mentioned this earlier, there's such a thing as potentially over communicating, but it's a fine line sometimes, because you have to be able to distinguish and have the ability to assess your audience, right, and assess at what portion is something ready to bring forth to your Board of Education, or to community members, or to even some of your educators, right? Some things are just not ripe to be brought forth. They might cause panic if they're brought up too early, or you have the type of audience who just wants to be informed, and they're going to have opinions, and their opinions could potentially help you in moving forward with whatever additional steps or discussions. So it's really I hate to give the lawyer answer as to where this goes when it comes to transparency and communication, but it depends, right? But like I said, I think I think where a lot of educators, administrators, and Board of Education members need to really spend a lot of time. I'm not going to say the most time because we have more integrity discussions coming up in some future episodes, but they really need to spend time on finding those goals and finding where they can assess their integrity and assess their moral compass as it relates to those goals and what they're really trying to accomplish. Keeping the district at the forefront and trying to enlist some positive change in whatever way that is in their particular district, right? Because it's really different for everybody. So hold on to the thought about ethical leadership in education. It's not whether you're in education or not. Whether you have children in the school district or not. It's just from an education perspective, ethical leadership just needs to be all around. And whether you're involved in decision making, or you know somebody, or you deal with somebody who's involved in decision making as it relates to education, this just has to be an overarching theme, right? Or else nothing's really going to get done. Where it's going to get done, it's going to get done slowly, and it's not going to really lead to the overarching goal of getting things done in a positive way to impact, again, your students and educators and community members. It's not really it's not ideal to just talk about it and not to act on it, right? So we got to keep integrity and trustworthiness obviously at the forefront, but how leaders in the educational realm are really taking that and making the commitment to act upon those values is what's really important too. So as you finish your cup of coffee or tea, my tea's cold at this point, but I drink some iced tea. Again, I know we spent a lot of time talking about ethical leadership in education, but ethics in general, they really shape a lot of our decisions, or they should shape a lot of our decisions, and a lot of our future as a society. And if, again, whether you have kids in a school district, or whether you yourself are an administrator or an educator, or a board of education member, right? You gotta keep it at the forefront, because it's got to be unwavering, and it's got to be not just thoughts and core values that are created, but things that are followed and really considered every step of the way. So keep those conversations warm, your thoughts deep, and your ethics unwavering. Till next time, thank you for joining me on Legally Brewed, our second episode about ethical leadership in education. Don't forget to subscribe. Just give us a couple likes, and stay tuned for more. Next time, we'll be talking a little bit about, still in the education realm, but conflicts of interest, and a little more into transparency. Delving deeper into the New Jersey School Ethics Act, and talking a little bit, without giving legal advice, but talking a little bit about what the act says as it relates to potential conflicts and disclosures alike. All right, I'll leave you to it.